Hi, everyone. Pastor Don Smith here. Welcome to the Talk About It podcast, where we take relevant topics with a biblical point of view and we talk about it. You know you want to, and so do I. Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everyone. Pastor Don here. Talk About It. We are in Season 3, Episode 4, our conversation. In the last few episodes, it's been on forgiveness, and boy, do I have some great things for you today based on a conversation that I had over the last few episodes with someone. So I want to take these, these conversations and really let them just kind of organically flow because of your questions that come up from the other ones. That's what a conversation is. It's a give and go, right? So, someone asked the question on forgiveness, which this is an incredible topic, right? We know that, hey, I got to forgive because the Lord forgave me, or, you're forgiven to the degree you forgive. All this stuff just plays out in our life, right? As believers, or even if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this episode, you understand the idea of, well, you should just forgive and forget. You should forgive and move on. Don't hold a grudge or those type of things. Or you've heard this statement, I can never forgive you, or I will never forgive, or I can never be forgiven. Forgiveness is a topic, that touches every living person on the planet. There's not a person alive, regardless of whether you're a person of faith or you're not a person of faith, that forgiveness isn't an issue that needs to be discussed in a healthy way in our lives. Now, obviously, I'm formatting everything from a biblical perspective because that is what this podcast is about. We take relevant topics and we talk about them from a biblical perspective. That's what we do here. And if you're new here, this is your first time listening, I would encourage you, just go ahead and push pause, go back. It started this season if you want to. It's just 3 prior episodes, or you can go all the way back to season 1 and listen to our conversation over that in season 2. Listen, push pause. We will wait for you. We'll be here when you get back, and come back to this. But listen, if you've been a long-time listener, you understand the progression of our conversation and how it works. Forgiveness is one of those topics, though, that is universal, regardless of our view of it. I'm not required to forgive, or I am required to forgive, or you get it. We're trying to get this podcast in about 20, 25 minutes here, so I want to move into the question, that was posed to me, and I thought it was so good, and I hope you do too. Here's the question. Now, I've picked a Bible character to help me answer this question, but it was so good. Are you ready? You're not ready. You're ready, right? Okay, here you go. The question was this: Pastor Don, how do I know that I have totally forgiven? How do I know that I have forgiven someone? Why would that question be relevant? Well, it's a relevant question because as humans, even though we said, hey, you got to forgive and forget, tell me someone who actually forgets. Come on, somebody. That we're just having an honest conversation. I don't believe it's humanly possible to forget, especially when you've been wounded so bad that forgiveness is actually a topic that needs to be discussed because of the woundedness. Does that make sense? So, and I know there's some people nodding their heads right now. It's like, oh yeah, I thought I forgave that person, but then all of a sudden I remembered and I got angry again. Hello, somebody. I love this question. I loved it. I thought it was a mature question, and I thought it was a question for someone who's been listening and paying attention. I also thought it was a question that everyone has wanted to ask that maybe they haven't. How do I know that I have totally forgiven? Okay, here we go. You ready? Let's do this. Now, I picked Joseph to answer this question in Genesis chapter 45, verses 9 through 11. Hurry up and go to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord over all of Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of the famine. Now we know the story. Joseph in the Bible, he's prepared Egypt for the 7 years of famine that's coming, and so 2 years into the famine, this happens, right, where he meets his brothers again. I don't have time to read your Bible to you, man. You should read that book. It is a good book. So here's the question. How do I know when I have totally forgiven someone? Well, the truth, I believe, guys, is many of us, we cannot answer that question. Listen, have you ever wondered if you have totally forgiven someone? Come on. Does that question bother you enough to search the answer? It should. That question should bother you enough to search out the answer. See, I think we can find that answer in the life of Joseph. See, Joseph provides a heart-searching picture for me. He shows me how he was able to totally forgive his brothers. Now, let me lay this out in case you're not familiar with the story. Most of you who listen to this podcast probably are. 22 years earlier, his brothers had conspired to kill him. They were jealous because of the attention that he got from his father. Now, being the favorite, what Joseph would do is he would strut around in his coat of many colors, and on top of that, he had this dream that his brothers would bow down before him, and he was this kind of guy who really didn't have the ability to show sensitivity or humility. Okay, Genesis 37 is a reference here. He said to them, please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There will be a binding of sheaves, and behold, the sheaves arose and stood upright. Indeed, your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brother said to him, shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us? So that they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream, and he told it to his brothers and said, look, I have dreamed another dream. And this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me. And the sun and the moon are a reference to his father and his mother. Listen, this guy, right? It doesn't take a psychologist to figure out he's going to have troubles, okay? Yet, the dreams were from God. See, what I want you to understand here in this moment, there's nothing wrong with Joseph's gift. He's an interpreter of dreams. But there's a lot wrong with Joseph at this time. So, like God and God's hand was on Joseph, but he still needed to learn restraint. So God allowed his brothers to deal with him ruthlessly. Instead of killing him, though, they decide to sell him into slavery. This way, they never have to see him again, So in order to explain that to their father, they make up this story, and that's also in Genesis 37. So they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid goat, and dipped it in blood, and they sent the tunic of many colors and brought it to his father and said, we found this. Do you know where your son's tunic is, or where he is? And he recognized it and said, this is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. And without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and daughters arose to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, for I shall go down in the grave to my son in mourning. Thus his father wept for him. So even though the situation looked bad, God was with Joseph. Right? Like Joseph sold into slavery. His father thinks he's dead. His siblings, knowing the truth, allow his father to go through this mourning time. And they go through it with him, all the while knowing the truth. Like, this situation is just terrible. Okay? And so what happens is Joseph begins to work in Potiphar's house, and he became a very valuable employee, so valuable that Potiphar puts him in charge of his whole house. And, he was this good-looking young guy, and, man, here's what happens. Potiphar's wife, who probably was a little neglected by Potiphar because of, he's a busy man and those things, and she was emotionally needy. There's no excuse for it, okay? I'm just trying to lay out the scenario for you. He's this good-looking guy, and Potiphar's wife, she flirts with him. Well, she wanted sex. He refused it. So, being scorned, she accuses him of rape. And Potiphar believes her, naturally, and puts him in prison. And so Joseph was punished for doing the right thing. Joseph was punished for doing the right thing. He didn't have sex with her. Now, I often think about this punished for doing the right thing, and it moves me into 1 Peter and what he had to say. I think it's chapter 2. It says, "For this is commendable, but because of conscience towards God, one endures grief, suffering wrongfully. For what credit is it if you are beaten for your faults? You take it patiently. But when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before the Lord." Okay, so I remember that scripture. See, the worst thing that can happen to a man is success before he's ready. Okay, let me just say it this way, because I know that women listen to this too, and I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm trying to say. The worst thing that can happen to a person is to have great success before you're ready for it. See, this is the beginning of a period of preparation for Joseph. And there's a lot of you listening right now are asking this question: how do I know if I've totally forgiven? And what I want to say to you is I believe this is the moment, this is the beginning of a period of preparation for you. Oh, listen, watch this. See, Joseph didn't know it at the time, but through his tragedy, God had great plans for him. God wanted to make sure that Joseph didn't embark on the next phase of his life's work until he was ready. Hebrews chapter 12, it says, "For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and he scourges every son whom he receives." Okay? Being ready is a big, big deal to God. Now, Joseph was a guy who I believe, and I think you will agree too, if anybody had the right to be bitter, Joseph had the right to be bitter. Listen, first his brothers treat him cruelly, okay? Secondly, he's falsely accused of rape, and he didn't do it. He actually resisted the temptation. And you know what? We'd like to think that God will bless us when we're faithful, don't we? Makes sense. Well, I did the right thing. Why isn't God blessing me? But what was the thanks for doing the right thing for Joseph? He got thrown in prison. Now, and third, God allowed all these things to take place. Joseph didn't sin. He was loyal to God. Genesis 39:9, it says, "There was no one greater in the house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you," when he's talking to Potiphar's wife, "because you're his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" He didn't say sin against Potiphar. See, many people I know, they don't sin because they're afraid of getting caught. It's not that they don't sin because they want to live righteously. No, they don't sin because they're just afraid of getting caught. But see, Joseph was in a place where no one would have ever known if he had sinned. He could have been Potiphar's wife's little play toy, and no one would have ever known. He was faithful because he didn't want to displease God. But then God allowed him to go to prison for something he didn't do. Man, and this is a great talk. Joseph had a lot to be bitter about, and Joseph had a lot of people he needed to forgive. His brothers, Potiphar's wife, and maybe even God. You remember when I talked about that in the last episode? Oh, if you didn't listen, you need to go listen about learning to forgive God. See, after some time, I think Joseph gets he gets some company. That's what the story tells us, okay, in prison. Pharaoh's cupbearer and the baker. The story is, we've heard it from children's Bible stories, right? While he's there, each of them had a dream, and Joseph interprets their dreams. And so, don't blame Joseph, okay? But Joseph tried to use his gift of dream interpretation to get out of prison, and why not? He didn't do anything wrong, didn't deserve to be there, so no, why not use the gift that you have to try and get out? I think it's Genesis 40, verse 14. But remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For indeed, I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here that I should be put in this dungeon. Think about this. We would do the same thing. I would. I don't know about you, but I would do the same thing. If I hadn't done anything wrong, I'm going to use every ability I have to get out of the trouble that I don't deserve to be in. And let me just tell you this. I need you to just posture this for a moment. God wanted Joseph out of prison just as much as Joseph wanted to get out of prison. But the problem is, if getting out of the prison happened by Joseph's own hand, it would not validate what God wanted to do. Let me put it to you a better way. Sometime delays can be a part of God's plan in your life. Oh my. See that thing that you're so frustrated about because it's been delayed? Sometimes delays can be a part of God's plan in your life. I'm going to say this to you, and I hope you hear me with your healthy ears. Unanswered prayers can be as much God's answer as answered prayers. The truth is, Joseph needed to be delivered from bitterness and self-pity more than he needed to be delivered from prison. Oh my! What? The truth is, Joseph needed to be delivered from bitterness and pity more than he needed to be delivered from prison. Think about this. See, if we're walking in love, we never promote ourselves. We'll let God be the one who promotes us in His time. 1 Corinthians 13 says, love does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, does not provoke, does not think evil. Joseph was full of self-pity. How do you know that, Pastor Don? Well, Genesis 40, I think it's verse 15, for indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and I also have done nothing here that I should be put into this dungeon. Self-pity and self-righteousness are twins, and they complement each other. Self-pity and self-righteousness are twins, and they complement each other. See, we overcome them when we begin to forgive totally and keep no record of wrongs. See, if you're keeping a record of wrong, that means you haven't totally forgiven. Why would you keep a record of wrong if you don't intend to use it against the person who wronged you? There's your answer. How do I know if I've totally forgiven? Do you have any records of wrongs? See, Joseph had not forgotten his dreams. He knew one day his brothers would bow down before him. But when it finally happened, listen to me, because he had learned what total forgiveness was, when his brothers actually did bow down before him, he was a changed man. There's no more bitterness in him. You see, something happened to his heart in those 2 years of prison. See, before he probably thought the day would come when everybody would show up and beg for his forgiveness, right? And he'd have one of those gotcha moments, and he'd be able to throw the book at them for what they'd all done to him. Instead, everybody say instead. Instead, remember, we're talking about how do I know if I've totally forgiven? instead of throwing the book at them, when the time came, he lovingly welcomed them and forgave them with tears. My friends, here's my question for you in the midst of the question that was asked to me. What caused such a dramatic change? Pharaoh had some dreams. And his magicians and astrologers, they couldn't understand them. The cupbearer remembered that Joseph could do that, and he recommended him to Pharaoh. And suddenly Joseph was in front of the man who put him in prison. And he interprets the dreams, and Pharaoh is so impressed that he makes Joseph prime minister on the spot. Wow. During the famine, who comes to Egypt begging for food? Those very same brothers who had sold him into slavery. They didn't know him because it would have been 22 years. But he knew them. And the moment finally comes when Joseph reveals himself. It was the dream, the one he had dreamed all those years ago. But instead of punishing them, which he had the power to do, he's the prime minister of all of Egypt. You know what he did? Because total forgiveness was in his heart. Instead of punishing them, you read the story. The Bible tells us he wept. Filled with love, he demonstrated total forgiveness. Wow. What a question. I'm so glad that you guys asked that question, because who could have imagined that we would find the answer like this? Okay. All right. I got to calm down because, man, I know we're short on our time here. Your treadmill walk is probably done, or your drive to work is done, and you're sitting in the car with a little extra time, going to be late going into work, or maybe you spend a little extra time on the treadmill because of this episode. That's fine, isn't it? Listen, okay, here's what we'll do. In this thought process, all right, I want to give us some examples at exactly how this happens, okay, to be filled with love and to demonstrate total forgiveness. And briefly, when I was thinking about it, I jotted down just maybe 7. So I want you to look forward to that. So meet me back here at the next episode, okay? This is Season 3, Episode 4, so that'll be Season 3, Episode 5. And we're going to give some examples that I think are going to really cement this conversation. It has been a good one, and I hope it has blessed you. It blessed me so much. Boy, I needed it. I don't know about you. I needed it. Man, look here. I love you guys. This is a joy to have a conversation with you each and every week. For me, I am loving every minute of it. Thank you for your comments. Do me a favor, please. Comment. It helps the algorithms of the podcast. All I need you to do is go, yes, thank you. That was great. Or even, hey, I hated that. I don't care. We're having a conversation, right? Like, well, I do care, but you know what I mean. Share it on the social media. Just copy the link, paste it in there. Tell everybody what you thought about it. Let's get them listening as well. Our subscribers are growing each and every week, so I'm excited. I hope you are too. It's been a great conversation. Listen, I love you. So does Jesus, and I will see you next